Okay, it is December 19th, 2021, and it is raining outside, and I've decided to do this video in the rain. It's pretty cold, but I think I can last for some amount of minutes. We'll see. So, right away I want to say that my entire video yesterday was dedicated to a comment that I misinterpreted. So, good for me. At least I got 40 minutes of content out of it. My bad. Second thing I want to say is there is a house update coming soon. Home update video. Somebody asked me for that one, so that's coming soon. And now I want to get to some transphobic content. So the title of this video is going to be Transphobic Content. Transphobic content. It's incoming. And if you're here to cancel me, if you're here because you saw this title and you're like, wow, fuck this guy, and you're here to find the thing that I say that's transphobic, I ask you from the bottom of my heart to please go to episode 64 and watch that one first. Because what I'm about to say is just going to assume that you've already heard everything else that I have to say about this. And if you start here, I'm just going to come across as very ignorant, but whatever, can't really control it. So, Elusive Vulture asked me yesterday, the Elusive Vulture, to talk about Leah Thomas, the swimmer, the Penn State swimmer. So I'm going to start there, and then I'm going to go to some very transphobic places. I have a theory for why transgender people exist. Transgender men, at least. I can't explain transgender women, not right now. But I have a theory for men. A biological theory. That is of my own creation, I think. So, first of all, Leah Thomas is some guy who was like 19 or 20, decided to transition, is a swimmer, then joined women's events and just is dominating women's swimming events because, you know, he's a dude who's like tall, wide shoulders, you know, experienced male hormones for 19 years, and then for some reason, if you decide on the 20th year to switch to hormone blockers or estrogen or whatever, somehow your muscle mass and bone density and everything just doesn't matter anymore. It's like, no, I've been on estrogen for a year, it should be okay. But this guy's just like crushing women's records, and just like, I just feel bad for the girl that gets second place. You know, the one who's been working hours and hours, you know, theoretically, probably most of her life to like get to this point, and then just looks over to her left or her right and just sees this guy swimming much faster than her because it's a dude with like, look at pictures of him. He looks like the Kurgan from Highlander. He's got some Clancy Brown vibes going on, in my opinion, which is, clip that one out for transphobic content if you want it. Real Clancy Brown vibes, in my opinion. Deep voice, you know, it's a guy with long hair who's been taking estrogen for some short amount of time. And yeah, if you Google it and you look it up, the people that are talking about it are going to be all the conservatives, all the red teamers are talking about it because they love to talk about the absurdity of the trans ideology. And the blue team kind of ignores stuff like this because it just makes them look silly. Because clearly, this trans women are women concept is making life difficult for some women out there, right? Women swimmers who are getting destroyed. Like, 38 seconds beats the record by 38 seconds. Nobody thinks that that's suspicious. It's silly, and I don't want to keep talking about it because I'm just retreading the same ground that the red team treads all the time. But here we go. I want to tread some new ground. An explanation for Tims. An explanation for why Tims exist. This is my guess. I could be completely wrong. I could be completely off my rocker, but this is just me telling the truth about what I believe to be true. So Tims, trans-identified males, not TIFs. I'm not talking about trans-identified females because I don't know why they exist. No idea. But trans-identified males make sense to me, so, at least in this one context. So, here we go. Think about the narrative of transgenderism, right? It's that somehow gender and sex are independent, somehow a man can be born in the wrong body, or a woman can be born in the wrong body. So, Leah Thomas, theoretically, is a woman who was accidentally born in a male body. For some magical, stupid-ass reason, people believe that, right? People believe that somehow Leah Thomas believes he's a woman, and somehow there's a narrative, right? It's a narrative. It's a story. It's a story people buy into. I'm sure that this person is having an experience. I'm sure they're having an experience that they they attach it to a narrative, right? How can you have an experience and not attach it to a narrative? No matter what the experience is, how can you possibly... So what I'm trying to say here is, if Leah Thomas was born in the year 50,000 BC in the steppes of Russia, where I assume this guy's ancestors are from based on his stature. That was a joke. What I'm trying to say is, imagine that you are a trans person who was born tens of thousands of years ago into some nomadic band of hunter-gatherers, right? So, surely, if these people are telling us the truth, these woke people, if they're telling us the truth, well, regardless of what they're saying, let's just assume that this experience that Leah Thomas is experiencing is something that just naturally occurs in the human body at any time in human history. So we can assume that trans people have been being born, right? These trans-identified males have been existing for tens of thousands of years. So what happens when they're born into a nomadic tribe, or really any other society, really any other culture who might have a different storyline for why these people exist? Some cultures have like third genders, some people have different explanations. Some people probably just killed them right away. I mean, I assume there were some that were just like, all right, you're dead, you're gone, we don't like you, bye. I assume that all sorts of cultures had different answers for this experience, this human experience. Some people might have thought you're possessed by a demon or something. They might have thought you're out of your mind, you know? Like, they used to just castrate gay men in England, so it's not like this is that unreasonable, right? Or that unrealistic. So what I'm trying to say here is that there's been a lot of different storylines to explain why these people exist, and here is what I think from an evolutionary angle. Here's what I think from an evolutionary angle. I believe this human experience, the human experience that Leah Thomas and other trans-identified males experience, is a mating strategy. I believe it is a mating strategy. So, the words, the stories, the stories of how the experience is described, you know, the way they describe it, the way they describe their own behavior, their behavior even is modified by the narratives, but it's all narrative. It's all just stories we've invented. I'm talking about from a purely biological, animalistic standpoint. This is a mating strategy. So if you think about it, most mammals have the kind of the alpha male setup, right? They kind of have the setup where there'll be like one or two or some number of like small number of males who sleep with most of the females, who have sex with most of the females. This is the nature of animals. This is how it is. It's how it goes for most mammals. Go back, I mean, it's a different arrangement for different species. It looks different slightly, but generally, the alpha male thing is real. There is truly the alpha male, and then the other males are like competing to try to get to that position so that they can fuck all the females. That is the way this works. And it works more or less the same in humans. We've gone and complicated things by getting smart and inventing marriage and stories and cultures, and you know, we have narratives that change the way we behave, and we trick ourselves into doing things that are probably not, you know, I don't want to get stuck on this whole narrative thing, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. What I think is that what is not threatening to an alpha male is a trans-identified male. What is not threatening is a male who behaves a certain way. And if you look, and this is where I'm going to get real controversial, real transphobic, look at the porn that trans-identified males consume. So how do I know what porn trans-identified males consume? Well, I've read about it. I've been to the places on the internet where trans-identified males go and talk about their experiences, right? These places exist on the internet. If you go look for them, go look for the real ones. Don't look for the ones that the woke people just bring to the front. If you Google it, you're going to get a list of results that are like pro-trans, right? You got to go dig. You got to go find first-hand experience, first-hand stories of trans-identified males, and look at the type of porn they watch. They will tell you what kind of porn they watch. There's a category, and you can find the category, and there's a lot of videos in that category, a lot of content generated, because there's a big demand for it, because there's a lot of males experiencing this. That category of porn falls into the submissive masochistic category. So someday I need to make a video about like a porn map. But if you start at the top of porn and then you break it down into like a hierarchy of porn categories, there's basically a couple top concepts that break into other concepts. And there's overlaps and there's a lot of different pathways, and you know, it's a complex map. And I've tried to find clustering of it. Like I've tried to find somebody who's made it'd be very interesting to cluster people based off of the porn they watch and the categories they watch, and see, like, if you watch this category, are you more likely to watch this or that? And so I believe, from what I've read, from what I've seen, I don't have data to back this up, but this is a guess. It seems to me trans-identified males are more likely to watch submissive masochistic categories of porn that involve humiliation, like denigration. It's a lot of cuckolding. It's submissive masochism, right? It's a character. There's a scenario that plays out where they're basically, what happens is that there'll be an alpha male fucking the girl they want to fuck, and this is the thing they're turned on by. So like I've said in the past, you can't argue with what makes a dick hard, right? You can't. If something turns somebody on, that's real. Just because it's in your head doesn't mean it's not real. So regardless of what the storyline is for why this happens, there are men who are turned on by watching other men fuck the women they want to fuck. That is a real thing. There's a huge category of porn for it. And it turns out trans-identified males often watch this kind of porn. They often watch that kind of porn. And so, I mean, seriously, go look it up. Go look it up. Watch the porn that comes up, and you know, like I said, there needs to be a class on Pornhub. There needs to be a class where you just go through Pornhub for a couple of hours and just go look at what people are watching. See some of the stuff that's, you know, people talk about racism and things. Go look at porn related to race. It's amazing how racist porn can get. It's like insanely racist. It's actually, again, it's at the core of this stuff, because you can't change what makes your dick hard, right? So if your dick gets hard based off of racial categories, what can possibly be more racist than that? Possibly. It's like, that is so deep in you can't even change it. It's like built-in racism. So let me get back to the transgender thing. I believe basically how this works is, for whatever reason, trans-identified males, I don't know what happens to a human body over time that, I don't know how the body does this. Like, I have no idea how a human body does this, but it seems like the body's trying to reproduce, right? The animal is trying to reproduce. And so for whatever reason, this body has decided that the best strategy for this, like some sort of circuit turns on, some sort of strategy, a mating strategy turns on, that now starts giving this person experiences and feelings that leads them to behave a certain way. And so what we call these experiences now is transgender, right? But take away that narrative, take away this whole transgender idea. Truly what it is simply a mating strategy. It gets you to behave in a way that's not threatening to other males. An alpha male is not going to be threatened by a guy who behaves the way these people behave, right? They don't behave in ways that will start a fight over a woman, right? What they do is they behave in a way that allows the alpha male to come fuck all the women, but they still get to hang out in the circle. They still get to be there. And somehow they will have sex at least a couple times. It's a way of having a non-zero amount of sex, and passing on some of your genes. This is what I think. This is how I think. This is why transgender males exist. This is my opinion. It's a guess, it's a hypothesis, but it's the only one that I can think of that makes sense. Because it's not by accident. It's not by accident. There is no accident here. This is not a man who accidentally had the wrong gender inside their body, or a woman trapped in a man's body. It's not that. That's magic. That's a fairy tale. And, you know, maybe the alternative explanation could be there's some sort of chemical in the water supply that is messing up the testosterone levels of men, which I've seen some things about. There are some studies that point to various levels of chemicals in the food and water that we consume that messes with your hormones, and it's possible that that hormone imbalance would cause whatever the transgender experience is. But Based off the porn, my theory is that this is a mating strategy. Otherwise, the porn wouldn't look the way the porn does. And, you know, I know that you can't use porn to understand human behavior, but the porn that we make is a reflection of what we want. And we can't change what we want. Like, nobody chooses the type of porn that turns them on. You don't choose that. That's just there. You experience that. And the experience is more real than the narrative, in my opinion. So whatever the narrative is, doesn't really matter. It's the experience. And I do believe trans-identified males are experiencing something. There must be. It's a human experience. It's a human experience. And I just think it's a kind of a mating strategy, really. And, you know, call me transphobic. I am transphobic. I think. I've been accused of it so many times. You know, I have no hatred or fear or disgust towards trans-identified people. You know, I like them as much as I like any other group of people. My problem, the reason I'm transphobic is because I just disagree with all of the explanations and all the storylines. I don't believe the narrative that a man is a woman's trapped in a man's body. I don't believe that. And if we, like I've said in episode 17, where I talked about transgenderism, since we believe these wacky things, we are now living in a wacky reality where swimmers can switch genders and then dominate the competition. Like, this guy was like an average swimmer, I think, based off what I read. He was not an excellent swimmer, and then he becomes a woman, and suddenly he's the best swimmer in the world. So that's like wild. It's ridiculous. It's insane. It's unfair to the women in the sport. It's unfair to... It's just insane that the conversation even happens, right? It's just wild that the conversation's even there. So that's what I disagree with, and that makes me transphobic, which is fine. That's fine. I'm glad to be that kind of transphobic. All right. Winding down. I might have gone too fast with this video. I might not have explained everything clearly. This is an idea I've never articulated before. I've talked about it with my brother a little bit. I mean, I've kind of talked about it. That's where most of my ideas start, is conversations with him or just with friends, but a lot of my friends are not so willing to jump into these kinds of topics sometimes. Truly, you can understand humans through porn, I really think. I mean, porn is obviously an extreme... there are examples of extreme porn, really, and those aren't like a true reflection of human nature, but like I've said before, like the porn exists because we want it, and we want it because we're built a certain way. So you can understand how we're built based off of the type of content that we consume. And the content doesn't get produced on a massive scale unless a lot of people are consuming it. So if there are like millions of examples of a certain kind of porn situation, then that reflects on humanity in some way. And you can find millions and millions of videos that have, if you just look at the themes, if you look at the storylines that are in those videos, you will find information about trans-identified males. You'll just find some... I mean, transgender porn is like, the transgender concept is deeply tied into a lot of porn, a lot of it. There's so many different porn categories that involve some kind of transgender something. I mean, just to bring this to a more wild place here, just what I'm not talking about, for example, that also involves transgender people, girls with dicks. That's like a massive category of porn. Like a completely female body, but just with a penis and balls. It's a huge category of porn as well. And that's not what I was talking about at all with this video. But that's also, like, clearly, the human mind, like I've said in the past, we have a model of the universe and how we perceive the universe, right? And it's clear to me that we're too smart for our own good, first of all. We're just too smart. Like, our cortex is creating problems for our sexual organs because I think we get too deep in our own minds. We think we're too introspective. And also, this is stuff that I've really only I've really only had intimations of this. Intimations. I've really only have a vague grasp of this. But if you really think about the experience of what happens when you are close up to sex, right? When you're there, when you are in the sexual moment with a person, there's a feeling there, right? There's a feeling. And if you really kind of explore that feeling, and if you really think about it, all right, I'm 20 minutes in. I'm just going to keep going here. This is about to get dangerous. I'm about to involve pedophilia in this, I think. I have to. So, it's not really pedophilia. There's a scene in the movie, One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I just rewatched a week ago. One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. He's put into a crazy institution. I'm just going to assume people have seen this movie, but there's a scene at the beginning where the psychologist is interviewing him and kind of going over why he was put in jail and now why he's at the psych ward. And he mentions how he's like, oh, you've gotten into 5 fights. And Jack Nicholson, McMurphy, his character, says, all right, let me rewind here. So McMurphy says, well, as far as I can tell, I'm here because I fight and fuck too much. And I think his character in this movie sort of represents like the animalistic nature of man, really. And running into like the overbearing feminine power of Nurse Ratched, right? To me, that's the theme of the movie. It's like masculine nature versus the overbearing feminine, that's how I interpret it. Could be completely wrong. That could just be my own view here. But in that one scene, the guy mentions how he was in jail for statutory rape. He had sex with a 15-year-old. And I just kind of recommend you watch the scene. Eventually, I'll start putting clips up on this channel. I could just play the clip right here. But McMurphy basically says, and this stuck with me. He goes, when you have that... I should just play the clip. He goes, Doc, when you have that beaver right up in front of you, it looks the same. Any man could not resist that. And so what he's trying to say is that this is a sexually mature body, right? It's a 15-year-old girl, and he's saying that she had a sexually mature body, and it is not pedophilic to have sex with this, right? It's not. And like any straight man would be turned on in that moment. And you can't, like I've been saying, you can't change what makes your dick hard, right? The experience is real. So just because she is 15, like the number 15, it doesn't change the experience that you will feel in that moment. If you didn't know. Like if you think about it, 15 is just a number. It's just a thing we made up. Technically, it's a narrative. Like why is 18 the rule? Why isn't it another number, right? These are all just narratives. These are storylines that we've applied today. But the animalistic thing there, what McMurphy is saying is that the animalistic drive was still there. And so what he says is he goes, that's not crazy, Doc. Like it's not crazy, And arguably he's right. It's not crazy to be turned on by that, right? And so what I'm trying to get at here, what this makes me think of is how does your body know that there is a sexual organ there for you to interact with? Like when there is a vagina right in front of you as a male, what happens to you that makes you experience the feeling of sex, right? What happens to you that brings up those sexual feelings? It's not as if you're doing it consciously. You could be lobotomized at this moment. You could be an animal. If you put an attractive female in front of a monkey, an attractive female monkey, of the same species, in front of a monkey, and this is a non-speaking, non-conscious thing, it's going to have the same exact feeling that we would have, and we're conscious and we speak. So this is not something you choose. It's there. You just experience it. You're just on a roller coaster ride, right? And so how does your body know? How does your body have that experience? What happens there? Because clearly you're seeing it with your eyeballs. You're seeing it, you're smelling it, your model of the universe includes it right in front of you, and it's turning you on. It's turning you on. So the way that I see this is, since this is not conscious, this is not learned, it's inbuilt, it's embodied knowledge, there's like an archetype of vagina in your head, right? Like an archetype of the sexual organ. It's like a built-in concept. Like you're born with knowledge of what a vagina is if you're a male. You're born with it, and you just remember it over time. because it comes out of you maybe during puberty, maybe as you start to develop a sexual instinct. You basically unlock the knowledge of vagina inside of you. Vagina, female body, you know, some vague physical, what happens over time is that there's like this vague physical thing that starts to turn you on, and there's an experience you start to get. And of course we have all sorts of narratives, and we invent reasons and stories, and we try to describe it, we try to articulate it, but truly it's like an inarticulable deep force inside of you. And so what I'm trying to get at here is that males have this experience towards vaginas, and theoretically females have an experience towards penises, you'd think, or something similar. Like there's like a female will have an experience of the masculine that will turn her on, right? Some kind of, and it's not just a sex organ if you think about it, because you can't articulate it like that. Like the way that I see it is there's like a, you know, I think a hairless, I'm just gonna get straight into this. Hairless body parts are way less attractive to me than some with hair on them. It's really weird to me that women shave their private parts completely, right? It's like strange when it's hairless. It doesn't feel right to me, you know? There needs to be some hair. I get it. It's not like I won't have sex with a hairless vagina, but I prefer the hair there. So what I'm trying to say here is that the hair is part of the image, right? It's not just like vagina, like the concept by itself. It's like vagina plus the surrounding area, plus the surrounding area connected to a body. So, but it's not like, I am driving myself into circles here, probably talking nonsense here, but I'm trying to say that there's inbuilt instincts that we have towards certain imagery, and it's not just imagery, it's like imagery combined with concepts that are in our universe. And I think that the reason you see these transgender porn videos is because it's all tied together. Like the part of your brain that gets you to be turned on by a dick is the same part of your brain that will get you to be turned on by a vagina. And you know, we don't understand these things, but they're there. They do exist. I can't tell you where it is, what part of the brain. I don't think anybody really can. They can give you a general area. But it's clear to me that there's like there's a place where the sex instincts exist in your brain, somewhere, like physically, truly, somewhere physical in your brain, there's a place where sex instincts are. And I think, based off the behavior that I see from the people around me and from my own introspective adventures into my own mind, it seems to me that it's kind of all connected together, right? There's no distinction. It's not like there's a distinct thing that's there, and then, like I said in another video, you cannot draw lines on what turns you on and what doesn't. There will always be something outside of that that's new, or something inside of it that doesn't turn you on. And I think it's because biology is fuzzy like that. Like we have neurons and they're connected, and everybody develops differently, but you know, I'm just sort of dancing around. I'm sort of just walking around the subject here. I'm sort of circling around it. It's just not simple. It's vague, it's fuzzy. And it seems to me that a lot of the behavior that we see sexually is due to the fact that we have these sex instincts inside of us that come from real organs, like real parts of your brain. And clearly, these parts of your brain, I don't want to say mixed up or like wires crossed, but the wires are there next to each other and they can get crossed somehow. So one way or another. Otherwise, you wouldn't see so much porn where there's a female body with a dick, right? Like the fact that there's so much porn where there's just completely an attractive female body, perfectly normal female body, with like a perfectly normal penis. And somehow that exists millions and millions of times on the internet, which means millions of humans are into it. Which means that, like, why? Why? Is that wires crossed? Is that because those sexual instincts are all built right next to each other? Is this related to the trans-identified males, or is it completely different? Like the experience of being a woman in a man's body, is that related at all to this I think it's related to porn. I think so. I think gender, sex, sexual orientation, what turns you on is absolutely related to your sexual identity and your gender identity. It's all one thing, right? It's all one concept, one set of organs maybe in your brain. I mean, we only have one brain, right? And they're not distinct. Your brain's all interconnected. All right, I should stop talking now. I've gone way beyond anything that I'm confident about. I'm just sort of riffing, trying to describe what I believe here. Trying to describe. I think trans identified males, this is just a guess, I think it's a kind of a mating strategy. I think that explains it. I think it's like an animalistic behavior that comes out in an attempt to pass on genes to the next generation. And the fact that they become sterilized and infertile is just like, that's an effect of the narrative that we've placed upon it. Because we say, oh, you're experiencing this, you must clearly be in the wrong body. But really, I think what it is you're experiencing this because you're an animal who's trying to pass on your genes to the next generation, and for whatever reason, your body has decided that this is the route you should take. You're not capable of being the alpha male thing, so it's like there's a 0% chance of you getting genes on in the next generation by going down the heterosexual dominant alpha male route. So it's like you're gonna go down the submissive male route where you can cooperate, where you can exist in the same place as the dominant men and also somehow pass on your genes to the next generation. And I think that explains a lot of the behavior that you see. This is just a guess, so call me transphobic. Go watch episode 64 if you want to see a more serious, longer breakdown of my thoughts on this. This was just kind of a wild reaching video, right? Grasping at something that I don't understand. So yeah, sex is weird. Sex is complicated. We don't know, we don't know what's going on with it. But anyway, I'm done with this video now. Done with this video. Just want to make sure today's December 19th, 2021. I told you a house update's coming. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see you later. Bye.